All right, welcome into the 305, guys. We changed the name recently. Should have done it a long time ago, even though neither of us is currently in the 305. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at 5 Reasons Sports. I spent some time in the 305 this morning, and it reminded me of why I don't go. Are they ever going to do anything about the construction there? Ever? They just arbitrarily decide when to shut down the highway. I've taken 75 different routes back from the arena to Fort Lauderdale. I don't get it. Anyway, I'm Ethan Skolnick.
I go on the 836 a lot, and I think they've already for at least 5 years have been working on that new overpass or whatever it is.
Oh yeah.
I don't think it's ever going to be done.
Stairway to Heaven. Yep.
Yeah.
There's a lady who knows all that glitters is gold. Van Lee, how are you? We got Alex Donno. You can follow him at Alex Donno. Again, I'm Ethan J. Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at 5 Reasons Sports. You know, there are other things going on today. There's nothing more important than you being here with us right now. And we all know that you know that. That's it. Nothing more important than that. Anyway, we are sponsored here by Prize Picks. Actually, this is more important than that. Sign up using the code 5. You put down $5. They give you $50 to play. That's 10-1. That's a campaign promise that absolutely will be kept. Give you the money right away. There's no catch. There's no nothing. There's no... I'm not going to say it. Okay, just use the code 5. This is not a grift. Use the code 5. You get $50 to play right away. PrizePicks.com, the Google Play Store, or the Apple App Store. This is our daily fantasy partner. You can play NHL right now, NFL, college football. It's all on there. They've even got live plays now. You can play live. So, you don't like the way a game's going, you can pivot and go the other direction. This is the game. So check it out. PrizePicks.com. Use the code FIVE. All right. This was a provocative title that we put on this one today. Heat or Dolphins, whose problems are more fixable? I mean, there's an obvious answer to this, right? Before we sort of get into the nuances and the layers and all of this kind of stuff. The Heat's problems are always more fixable, are they not?
Yes. Okay. Well, and I've been thinking about that all day today, because first of all, Ethan, I fully trust the individuals who are in charge of the Miami Heat.
Right.
I know they haven't gotten things right 100% of the time. Right. There have been, a couple times, including probably this season, where, maybe you wish they didn't, run it back with the same core. There are other circumstances, though, as to why they did it. And there have been other years, like after after that second half of the year they had with Dion Waiters, or they decided to run that back. So they haven't been batting 1,000. But I mean, Ethan, when Pat Riley and Andy Ellisberg are at the wheel, at least you know that something incredible could be possible. Then when you have Stephen Ross and Chris Greer at the wheel, what have they actually done for us? Well, what they haven't proven anything. And we were supposed to be that this is now really the second or third year, I guess you could argue, at least the second year, where the Dolphins are in a win now window. I don't know how much longer that window is going to stay open. The season's already over now at 2-5.
Yes.
And why would I trust?
2-6, my friend. 2-6. Do not forget the 6.
Sorry. Yes, you're right. I apologize to the Dolphins for shortchanging you a loss. So why would I have faith that organization can fix it when they've literally never done it? At least not since, before the current regime was in charge, where at least I know the Miami Heat can pull something off. And also, Ethan, with the Heat, they've got some nice young pieces. And again, I'm not, obviously, I don't expect them to win anything now necessarily. I'd love it if they did. But at least you know that those young pieces can, I loved watching Pele Larson the other night. At least we know that those young pieces, they're either going to turn into something or they can become trade pieces for something else.
Well, here's the thing. Here's a question on election day that we should be asking. Chris Greer was elevated. It's really hard with this timeline with him because he's just been there forever. But technically, he was elevated on January 4th, 2016. Okay, so we're talking almost 9 years ago. Are you better off than you were 9 years ago?
No.
Okay, so that's it. To me, that's the end of the conversation. There's nothing else to really discuss.
Yeah.
I'm all for giving guys the benefit of the doubt and saying you're not responsible for this or that. I also understand that there are certain things that he did that worked out. I mean, the Tyreek Hill trade, I would do it again. There are other moves. The Jalen Ramsey trade, I would do it again. Some of his draft picks have been very good. There's also been a lot of picks that, have been good, but they came with injury histories that have played out, like, say, Tua and Jalen Phillips. Now, Javon Holland can't seem to stay on the field, and that was one of his better picks. So I just look at it, I say, listen, this is a results business, okay? I'm all for continuity when continuity is moving you in the right direction. And I agree with the idea that if, say, the Heat have gotten themselves into a little bit of a fix here, you allow the people who've gotten them out of it many times to do it again. But I don't know that we have a sample size of Greer accomplishing this, and I just don't see the point now. Like, I don't like this is I did a couple videos about this, for various places, and here's my thing: like, you cannot allow Greer to make a trade to improve this team this year. You can't. You don't know if he's going to be in charge, and you don't know if he's going to make a move out of desperation. If you're Ross, you're going to say no. Like Eric Wadicki said this 3 weeks ago. No, we're not going to trade draft picks to try to get better this season. The season's over. You hear guys like Tua and Tyreek talking about, oh, we're going to run the table. I mean, nice of them to think that. They've lost 9 of their last 11. I know Tua didn't play in all of them, but again, that was we're not that smart. I keep saying that, and you and I kept devoting a preponderance of episodes here to their backup quarterback situation before the season, and it ended up playing out exactly as we said it would, where Tua would come back with no margin for error, and that's what happened. Okay, Jay came back in 2002, won 2 games, then lost 2. There was no margin for error. This time, they've averaged 27 points in the 2 games he's played. He played brilliantly in the last game. It's not enough. So before we pivot over to the Heat side here, the Heat are better off for exactly the reason you said. I don't care who they have or who they don't have on the field or on the court. I care who they have making decisions. And I just trust the people making decisions with the Heat more so, even if Heat fans are frustrated by not getting this star or that star or pairing up a really small backcourt or whatever it is. These are kind of trivial things compared to, you got a team that's 2-6. 2-6. Like, I understand that they lost in the last play the last couple weeks or the last couple plays, but no. So I want to pivot to the Heat in a second, but I'll just ask you this, okay? If you were Ross, would you fire Greer right now?
You have to. I mean, I don't see how you couldn't, because and you outlined it perfectly, because you don't know if the next deal that he makes, if there is a trade that happens before the deadline. Obviously, you're probably not going to fire him during the season, so I guess the trade deadline thing is kind of out of it. But the next off season he would have to make trades, or the next draft he has coming up in April. How do you know he's not going to be making moves in the interest of self-preservation more than the long-term future of this football team at this point? And then, with the Dolphins, I know I think you and I were never really on board with this idea, but, prior to Tua's return, and Tua, outside of his health and missing time, like, Tua is not the problem. Like, they're losing games now in spite of him. But before Tua's return, on the Dolphins, I guess, only had 4 losses before he came back. People were saying, well, he's going to come back. He's going to be the savior. Here's the problem. This team is more than a Tua Tagovailoa away right now than from being a playoff team. And that, again, is a reflection on Chris Greer, and it's a reflection on the organization.
I'm with you, and I'm reading some of the comments here. We'll get to the Heat comments in a second here. Actually, let me speak to them, and then we'll hit them on the other side. Yeah. Kaz, Spo's rotation and stubbornness are the problem. No more Thomas Bryant minutes. Mr. M, he'd have like 70 games left to get right. Fins are done for the season. Aaron Andrews, more than that, yeah. But they got a 6-game trip that's going to tell us a lot. Aaron Andrews, Heat are glorified 6-17. Dolphins are going to win 5 or 6 more games to get a mid-teens pick. Again, the concerns with the Heat are like tinkering issues. They're okay. Spo could do this. Spo could do that. With the Dolphins, it's a much bigger structural problem. And you mentioned Ross, and this is where I'm at with it. Everybody wants Riley to make the all-in move, right? Because Pat's 79. Ross is what, 84? I mean, we're talking about 2 guys, basically octogenarians, okay? Mm-hmm. Heat fans haven't given Pat any credit for being patient at his age, because most guys at that stage would be all in, I have to win now. He hasn't done the gut the franchise to. Now, some fans want him to, and for Giannis, it may be worth it, okay? If they end up getting in on Giannis somehow, and I'm not expecting it, so I don't want to hope traffic on this, but I did predict the Bucks' demise before the season. I was the one saying, I don't even think they're a playoff team, okay? And now look at what they are. They're Doc Rivers' creation. They're worse than the Hawks since Doc took over last year, okay? Okay, worse than the Hawks and worse than the Bulls. So I saw that coming at least. I don't see necessarily the Heat getting in on Giannis because I don't know that I'll have enough unless he really restricts where he's going to go. OKC could offer whatever they want for Giannis. Okay, and they can offer him basically another ring. But I do think that if they are able to get in like somebody like that, Heat fans are going to be like, all right, well, it was good that they didn't go in before. They were waiting for the right one. And, I think Mitchell in their eyes might have been somewhere in that ballpark. Dame was not to them. Dame was, and they may be able to get Dame cheaper now if you want him, which is a whole nother question. But it was not the end of the world, and you didn't have to necessarily pull all your chips on the table for him, and that's kind of where I'm at. So, I want to get to this question from Aaron Andrews on the other side, but I just think the Heat's issues are fixable. They may not be fixable for this team to perform the way the fans want them to perform this season. But before we get to that, you know what's fixable? Your wheels. You break, wheel fix. Pretty simple. You at the start, our friend Mark and his team, based in North Miami, they can do everything for you. You can find them on Instagram also at You Break Wheel Fix. They are, again, based in North Miami. They had to move to a different location because they needed to accommodate because they've gotten so much business. I'd like to think some of it's from us. But happy customers, 5.5% off your next order, the entirety of it, whatever it is, if you mention 5 reasons. So pretty simple, 5.5, simple math. Check it out, youbreakwheelfix.com. Again, they do the powder coating. They do everything there. But the biggest thing they'll do is they give you loaner wheels too if you're waiting to get your wheels fixed. So check them out. Roads of South Florida suck. I hate to say it. Certain places suck more than others. Hi, Aaliyah. What are you doing? I was there today. I said there's like 3 potholes per block that it's sinkholes. You just never you never get out. In Fort Lauderdale, I live here. It's just not. I mean, it's just as bad here. Okay, with the flooding and everything else. So check it out. youbreakwheelfix.com. All right, this comes in from Aaron Andrews. Are the Heat fans that are trying to push Riley out worse than the Dolphins fans running Shule out of town? How old were you in '95, Alex?
I was old enough to pick a side. I was 10, 11 years old, but here's what I remember about that time. I kind of look back on it. I was pretty young at the time, and I kind of regret it after the fact. What happened with Shula? For whatever reason, my father, who listened to Hank Goldberg every day and whatever else, he was very time to push Shula. Also, and my father is, as I am, a big fan, so he really wanted Jimmy Johnson, of course. So my dad was very much on the push Shula out train, and I think I kind of regret that after the fact.
Yeah, I think most people do, but the difference here is the only reason I give the Dolphins fans then any grace, well, they probably didn't deserve it for what Shula did here, which was, I mean, he took over an expansion franchise coached by George Wilson. Take a look at those teams, and not only won 2 Super Bowls back to back, but was undefeated in one of them, and then transitioned and had one of the more entertaining teams for a while, even though they didn't win anything because of the defense and the running game and all that, not supporting Danny. But they did make it to 2 Super Bowls, one in '82 prior to Danny and one in '84 after he arrived. And he tried his last year. He had like 22 first-round picks on that team. They made a run at it. It didn't work. But here's the difference, and you said it. There was a viable alternative that I understand why Dolphin fans got excited about him, because Jimmy was electric at that time. Jimmy was the guy. Jimmy was bigger than Saban when the Dolphins got Saban. Like that's so. And I covered Jimmy's first practice, his first training camp practice, and when I tell you there were people down the street, down the block, into the next county trying to get into training camp. Like that, Jimmy was the thing. The problem with Jimmy was he kind of burnt out at UM, and then he had some family stuff, and he kind of changed his perspective on things. And then he drafted, I thought, exceptionally well. Did exactly what you do. You build the base. First 2 years, drafted 2 Hall of Famers, 2 guys in Madison and Surtain who were close to Hall of Fame talent. Tim Bowens was a Shula guy, but other guys that he brought in built a great defense. But then he had a chance to get Randy Moss. We all know what happened. He drafted John Avery instead. He passed on Randy Moss, which made no sense because he'd handled Michael Irvin and all kinds of other guys.
Yeah, I know.
And that screwed up the whole thing. So instead of like trading up to but again, I understand why Dolphin fans felt that way at the time. Who are you replacing Riley with? You're just replacing him with people who are in-house, and that's what you should do anyway. Exactly.
Right. Yeah. You do that at the right time. Like I love the fact that for the past several years, like, and this is something Riley always does. He's always grooming proteges, right. And whether it be a potential replacement, he's preparing people if they do get other jobs elsewhere. Like maybe the Heat will have a succession plan, right? But we don't need to rush that. Like there's no reason to let Riley go out on his own terms.
Well, Alex, he's not pushing anybody to do anything specifically. He lets these guys make decisions. And like you said, he's empowered Andy, he's empowered Spo, he's empowered Andy Simon. Adam Simon is the best at what he does right now. Pella Larson is another in the long line of those. So I don't think that there's a change of direction that's necessary. I think the Heat may need to be more aggressive in certain situations. Toby says this: both teams are at the winter stage of the build. The Heat have more success in the time period without the championship. Well, that's true. The Butler build essentially started in 2019, 2020. They'd already drafted Tyler. Bam was here, and Duncan was here. There's only 4 left, by the way, for all the talk about running it back. And they almost traded Duncan this offseason. So they since 2019, they've made 2 finals and 3 conference finals. The Dolphins haven't done shit. I mean, really. I mean, they made the playoffs twice. Had no chance to go anywhere once they got there either time.
Well, and you know what's crazy about it was like the two Heat teams that made the finals.
Yeah,
there was kind of less buzz for them than what the Dolphins should have done the last couple of years, right? Where it's like, I mean, the Heat punched above their weight both times, whereas the Dolphins, it's like, hey, this team probably should be in an ACC or an AFC championship game or a Super Bowl, and they haven't won a playoff game.
2000, the year 2000. Now, Chris Greer hasn't been here for all of it, but he's been here for enough. It's time to change. I'll say this, and I'll leave it with this part, okay? I was at training camp. I'm not going to say who this was. I'll just say it's a top 5 member of the organization. Okay. It's a training camp in the Bahamas. Somebody sees me, hadn't seen me since last season, walks by me as I'm walking in for practice and says, Dolphins won another offseason, didn't they? Kept walking. Who's got a better chance to turn things around? The Heat. Okay. Look, again, I was at that game last night. It was frustrating. I don't know why Josh was playing so much. I don't know why Spo, and I asked him the question after the game. I don't know why Spo didn't sub in Highsmith for Rozier at the end. I don't want to start the wear stuff. But the fact is, that was Jimmy's best half of the season. The second half, Tyler's been a demon in the first half this year. Shouldn't have fouled a non-3-point shooter in DeMar DeRozan, who ended up making the shot. All kinds of things that didn't play out. And again, they may have a bad road trip because this is a killer coming up. But there are good players on this roster, and they'll figure out a way to turn this thing where they're a contender again. I just believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that with Dolphins. People are saying trade Duncan. I think that's a possibility. I've reported they almost traded Duncan in Sacramento this offseason, but it just it didn't end up happening because it wasn't because of them. It was because basically Harrison Barnes was traded to San Antonio, and they wanted to keep him, as opposed to Harrison Barnes being traded to Miami potentially, and Sacramento taking Duncan instead of Herter. So I've talked about this on Off the Floor. You guys should subscribe there. I'm just saying, overall, okay, Toby says here, not a big football guy. From what I've seen, it seems like Waddle should have been better at this point to get you to flip Tyreek for greater return. There's a lot of things they could have done. All I'm going to say is, okay, they shouldn't do anything of significance now. Alex, if they make a big trade before the deadline, the Dolphins, like to try to get better, is there what's the maximum on wins this season? 7 maybe?
7. That's what I'm thinking. I mean, if you, and this, like, and again, it wouldn't make sense to do it now. Cause I mean, when you're making deadline deals, it should be, you're either sellers, maybe there'll be a seller, or you're a buyer. I mean, if you're looking at making long-term deals, you usually make those long-term deals after the season, because there's really nothing to gain, in my opinion, in the short term. I mean, if they win out, they may be in the playoffs, but what are the odds of that happening?
I mean, I had them at 11-6. They would have to win out to do that. You trust this team to win 5 more games, let alone 9? I don't. And then see, people are coming in. Again, I think the comments that are coming in here about the Heat are all tinkering, tweaking. This guy should be playing. This guy shouldn't be playing. The comments about the Dolphins are much more in the macro, defeatist and negative, and they should be.
I would love to see the Dolphins draft Cam Ward next year, but I'm sure they won't. Even if they were in position to, I'm sure they wouldn't. But we can't all have nice things.
Well, I know you would like that. Well, anyway, the team that you cover on a primary basis, the Hurricanes, has turned things around in a heartbeat, and the Panthers are right now the best organization in town. Somehow, I don't know how that happened, and the Marlins don't exist. Anyway, thank you, Alex. We appreciate you. It's just crazy to watch Stanton. It's like Chisholm, Stanton watching the World Series and just thinking of what could have been done, and not just for those guys, but for all of them. Anyway, we appreciate everybody. We'll be back on Tuesday. We'll be back on Thursday. Stay safe tonight, no matter what it is you guys are end up doing, and and check out the rest of our coverage. We're taking mostly a hiatus from the channel tonight because we know most people are going to be watching other things. But our guy Eric Smith graded the Dolphins offensive line. That's on there. Lewis Sung did an episode about the Dolphins, Pulse of Nation last night. Plenty of 5 on the floor content come up here. And a new feature, our guy Alejandro Vegas is doing a feature called Real Talk on the Heat. Was interviewing people outside the arena yesterday about Wade's statue. We're going to be doing more fan base content, so we appreciate that. And shout out to Brady. Last mention. I'm working on it. Right now, follow Brady Hawk NBA. That's a real account. It's his other account. He just has a format. We're trying to get Brady Hawk 305 back. Apparently, you get on an enemies list if you call out Elon the way that I did. So the Heat told me not to do that last night because they've literally had this problem because I had enlisted their help. So trying not to get any more enemies list. Just subscribe to Brady Hawk NBA. Subscribe to Off the Floor. You'll find the rest of his content. He'll be on with us the rest of this time. All right, have a good one, everybody.